Chapter 641, Going Abroad Together. Mo Hilling decided that she absolutely would not let them announce their marriage. Not only because her victory would be diminished. It was because she simply could not accept seeing Lin Che in a wedding gown beside Gu Jingze. That position should have been hers. Thinking about Lin Che appearing like that, she felt disgusted. After Gu Jingze left, Mu Wanqing also came to see him numerous times. Ultimately, she did not want Gu Jingze to have disputes with the family. No matter what went wrong, these children were always united. This was also very comforting. These siblings did not have any issues over money, unlike those other rich families. This also made her feel that being their mother was worth it. Thus, the Gu family had been considerably peaceful for many years. But unexpectedly now, Gu Jingze, who had always been aloof and work-focused, had his own stubborn ideas. He had something he wanted even more. However, it was also because of this that problems started to arise in the family. The three brothers were not much different in terms of wealth and power. However, they kicked up a fuss with the family because of love. With regards to this, she was rather worried as a mother. Mu Wanqing came to the Gu residence. The maids told Mu Wanqing, "Madam, Mr. Gu already said that you should go home. He knows his limits and will not do anything out of the line." Mu Wanqing heard this and could only sigh. She said, "All right, tell him that his big aunt might try to sabotage things because of this. Tell him to be careful." Gu Jingze was an adult now and his thoughts were a lot more detailed than hers. He must have thought through it much more than she expected. She sighed and thought about Gu Jingze's behavior today. She could only sigh in her heart. This son of hers could actually become so strong for his own woman. Furthermore, he made both Gu Shand and Gu Lanshan speechless. At the thought of this, she should feel proud. In the study room, Qin Hao entered and said, "Sir, Madam has already left." Qin Hao looked up to see Gu Jingze standing by the window. He was holding his phone and looking at something. Qin Hao hesitated and remained silent. After a long pause, Gu Jingze then turned around, "Send people to keep watch on my big aunt's movements." Qin Hao replied, "Yes." He paused for a while and then said, "But sir, I have something that I'm not sure if I should say." "Say it. Since the child is not yours, why don't we find a chance to get rid of it? I actually know people in the Mo family." "No." Gu Jingze looked at Qin Hao. "If the child is gone, then we will never know who it belongs to. I want the truth to be revealed. I want proof that the child is not mine. This way, Lin Che's life won't be implicated. Otherwise, for years to come, people would say that Lin Che's husband, Gu Jingze, once had a child outside his marriage that was killed because of Lin Che. He never cared about all this worthless nonsense, but how could he let Lin Che go through this?" Qin Hao froze and then nodded understandingly. "So it was for Madam." That made sense. If it wasn't because of Madam, going by Sir's tactics. After Lin Che arrived in Los Angeles, she rested in the hotel to adjust to the time difference. She called Yu Minmin first to inform her of her arrival. After that, she went to sleep. Yu Minmin hung up and heard Gu Jingming come in. She quickly packed her things and ran out. Gu Jingming suddenly said, "There'll be a state visit later. You're coming with me." "Huh?" Yu Minmin asked in surprise. "State visit? What is that?" "We need to make a last-minute trip to a nation. Pack your things and we'll go." "Ah wait, are you sure you want me to go?" "Of course. You've been too laid back as First Lady. It's time for you to do something. Go get ready." Without giving Yu Minmin a chance to reject, he ushered her into the bedroom. Yu Minmin scratched her head. This was too sudden and she was still confused. However, the maids already came in and started packing for her. Yu Minmin could only ask the maids, "I don't need to speak a foreign language during the visit, do I?" "Madam, a nation also converses in Mandarin. Don't worry." "Oh, right, there are many Mandarin-speaking people there." "Yeah, I'm so nervous. That is why." "Madam, relax. Mr. President will not let you be by yourself. With Mr. President by your side, why do you need to be nervous?" Of course, she was nervous. More importantly, Gu Jingming had to look after her too. But based on past experiences, he would not care if she lived or died. There was no other choice and they quickly packed up. It was Yu Minmin's first time on a visit. Gu Jingming entered the plane. The lineup of heads of state was naturally strong. At the entrance, some media crew were outside taking pictures. The minute Gu Jingming appeared, the media immediately crowded outside. Some fans were also outside screaming. Gu Jingming smiled slightly. He turned to look at the people and waved plainly. The crazy fans behind screamed even louder. Blocked by the bodyguards, a human wall formed. Yu Minmin followed behind. She heard the media yelling, "Look! Mr. President took Madam President out with him today. Wow, Madam, have a word with us." Yu Minmin always kept a low profile. After her marriage, she never appeared in front of the media. Thus, her occasional appearance made everyone call out to her. Even with the National Security Bureau and presidential guards here, nothing could stop their enthusiasm. Yu Minmin was feeling nervous. She never faced the camera before and always felt that she was rather inferior. Especially when she stood beside Gu Jingming. He was too perfect and it made people compare him with her, an average commoner who already had many flaws. Just like many people said on the internet, she could not match up to Gu Jingming and yet she became Madam President. Actually, she knew it too. Thus, when another wave of people online said that this was true love, she thought that it was funny. If it really was true love, then there would be nothing to match up to. However, she knew that this was not true love. Thus, it made her feel even more worthless because, in Gu Jingming's eyes, she was merely a tool. And she also believed that she was actually just a tool. The human wall continued to move. Gu Jingming held Yu Minmin's hand and smiled at her. "Okay, say hi to everybody." Yu Minmin looked ahead hesitantly. She didn't know how to. Gu Jingming bent down. People on the outside could only see Gu Jingming bend down slightly and go next to Yu Minmin's ear. They started cheering even more. Chapter 642. Mr. and Mrs. President displayed their affection. Mr. President bent down and whispered into his wife's ear. This was too intimate. And this was right in front of the media. Mr. President was too good and affectionate. Madam President was really lucky. However, they naturally could not hear Gu Jingming whisper beside Yu Minmin's ear, "If you don't say something, I'm going to throw you out." Yu Minmin cursed and swore internally. She turned to the media, smiled, and waved. The flashlights went off like crazy. All the cameras turned towards Yu Minmin. On the news that day, Yu Minmin's wave to the cameras as well as the image of Gu Jingming whispering beside her ear graced the covers of the papers. Mr. and Mrs. President out on a sweet visit, the hearts of fangirls everywhere shattered. In the history of the highest value of the regime, what did Madam President save in her past life to enjoy today's sweetness? Mr. President is so popular that his intimate photos are kept private. Such titles were everywhere online. Yu Minmin was also praised. Her value was raised and she looked more like the nation's mother than before the wedding. Yin Suya could see all these on the TV. She narrowed her eyes. Gu Jingming actually brought Yu Minmin along on his visit today. Yin Suya knew that netizens online previously commented that the president never brought his wife out with him ever since getting married. People grew suspicious of their life after being married. Gu Jingming's people probably saw this and decided to suddenly let Yu Minmin come along. Otherwise, Gu Jingming would never have appeared with such an uncultured woman in public. Yin Suya continued looking at those photos and couldn't bury the pain in her heart. Needless to say what thoughts manifested in her heart when she saw those praises. Yes, no matter who it was, anyone would look good in those exquisite clothing specially tailored for glazed tile palace. Those were individual designs by the designer, coupled with term-free personal service. Whoever stood at such a high position would also obviously look like the nation's mother. It was all because of Gu Jingming. Actually, looking at Yu Minmin alone, how could she be the nation's mother if she was cowering? Yin Suya watched and picked up her phone. "Hey, Xiaoai, Jingming is on a visit to a nation. Don't say that I didn't give you a heads up." The person on the other end said, "You are so generous to give Mr. President to me. I'm only helping you. You told me yourself that your family's goods are stuck and you need a way out. You wanted to seek Mr. President to help, but I can't do it now. After all, I'm not at Jingming's side and you don't know the woman beside him. I'm not familiar with her either, so we have no hope. Thus, I can only give you this idea. After all, no man can reject a woman's advances, right? Alright then, I must really thank you. Actually, I saw the news today. That Yu Minmin is with Mr. President and people are saying that she is so graceful. She is clearly not as graceful as you. If you were standing there, you'd absolutely look like the nation's mother. What is she worth? Seriously. Yin Suya heard this and she tightened up once again. This was her pain. It was all her fault for missing her chance. Gu Jingming. She missed out on the chance to have everything that Yu Minmin had today. She held her phone tightly, but her voice remained calm and collected. Jingming and I are only good friends now. Just keep all this between you and me. If others heard this, they would think that I'm jealous. Yes, of course, I'll keep it between us. Okay, I'll head to a nation now. You said that you'll help me, right? Of course. The invitation. I will send the state party's invitation to you. She no longer had the same relationship with Gu Jingming in the past. However, she could still get an invitation. On that day, Yu Minmin and Gu Jingming arrived in a nation. As it was just around the corner, they only took 2 hours to travel. When they disembarked the plane, the welcoming party outside was even more enthusiastic. The other party's head of state welcomed them personally. Many media crew also followed outside. C Nation's president had a good affinity with people. This was well known to the world. Thus, every time a little bit of news came up from C Nation, they were easily featured on little gossip columns. Gu Jingming was conveniently talked about at the same time. After all, Gu Jingming was young, wise, handsome, and very popular among young women around the world. Boring politics suddenly became alive because of Gu Jingming. C Nation felt that their foreign affairs department saved a lot of trouble because of Gu Jingming's diplomacy. Very soon after, Gu Jingming checked into a major hotel that a nation specially used to host country leaders. Inside, Yu Minmin and Gu Jingming shared the same presidential suite. Yu Minmin thought about how the president was staying in the presidential suite. This was really making a full circle. She did not tell this lame joke to Gu Jingming. She snickered to herself as she thought about it. When Gu Jingming found her, he saw her sitting there smiling foolishly. She was facing outside and her chest tightened. With her back straight and turned slightly, she looked a lot better. Yu Minmin felt that something was not right. She turned around to see Gu Jingming looking at her. She got caught. Yu Minmin quickly stopped herself and asked him properly, "What am I going to do tonight?" She was happy thinking about something, but she was not happy to see him. It seemed like this happiness had nothing to do with him. He straightened his face and asked her, "Are you asking me?" Of course, she was asking him. Who else could she be asking? They were the only two people in the room. Yu Minmin said, "I haven't been on a visit before. Do I need to do anything tonight? Otherwise, I really don't know anything. I'll be an embarrassment." You're afraid to be an embarrassment? Of course, she was afraid. There would be plenty of media coverage and this was her first time on an overseas visit. Actually, she rarely went overseas. Who would have thought that on the one time she could go overseas, it was for a state visit? The thought of it was unbelievable. However, Gu Jingming suddenly said, "If you're really afraid, come here." Yu Minmin said, "Huh." She played dumb too many times that Gu Jingming immediately saw through it. He smirked, "If you don't want to be an embarrassment, you must please me first. If I'm happy, maybe I'll help you." Hey, how could this? Gu Jingming, if I become an embarrassment, I'll embarrass you too. It's okay, I'm not afraid of that. At the very most, I'll make a public statement and say that my wife has never been outside before and she didn't know. Everyone will only remember how embarrassing you were and instead become more sympathetic towards me. They'll think that I'm totally tolerant and doting on you. You're so embarrassing and yet I still take you out. Yu Minmin looked at him and didn't want to yield to him. She said, "Then forget it. I'm used to being an embarrassment anyway. I'll just say that my husband doesn't mind and I have nothing to fear. That would do. Seeing that Yu Minmin wanted to escape, Gu Jingming immediately grabbed hold of her waist. Okay, she was not afraid of embarrassment but she was afraid of him. Chapter 643, The most handsome president was eye-catching. Gu Jingming asked, why are you running away? I'm not. Yu Minmin was completely struggling and she still dared to say that she wasn't running away. Running. If you dare to run again, I'll let the whole world see how I punish you tonight. What? Yu Minmin lowered her head. She did not know how he was going to let the world see. Gu Jingming already had a sinister smile and dark humor in his eyes. Then, he lowered his head and bit her neck. Yu Minmin's body froze. She immediately realized what he wanted to do. She wanted to push away his firm arms holding her down but she couldn't. He pushed her down and the pain in her neck penetrated through her heart. After that, she felt him suck on her neck, making her entire body stiffen. Needless to say, a plum blossom already formed visibly there. And it was on her neck. He released her a little and wanted to continue. She understood the meaning of his words. If he continued doing this, she really would not be able to show herself tomorrow. Okay, I won't run away. I really won't, Yu Minmin begged for mercy. Gu Jingming then released her in satisfaction. He looked down at her expression and said softly, come, open your mouth. Yu Minmin blushed. Gu Jingming frowned, be a good girl and listen to me. Open your mouth. Yu Minmin did not dare to look at him as she opened her mouth slightly. He was pleased. He looked at her and gazed at her red and plump lips. He already couldn't control himself. He lowered his head and pressed her down. Then, he bit her lip, thoroughly lingering. He was very careful not to leave any marks on her body. However, Yu Minmin was still tortured by him as she cried for mercy. She cried for a long time before he finally let her off. Yu Minmin couldn't bear it anymore. She laid there and fell asleep. The state banquet was a dinner for everyone. It was hosted after Gu Jingming had a meeting with the nation's leader. Yu Minmin did not attend the formal meeting. The two leaders would talk about some important matters and neither could bring any irrelevant personnel. Yu Minmin read the news about him on the computer. It was said that he was discussing trade issues with the nation's president. The meeting was very formal and Gu Jingming was as proper as ever. His straight posture did not look any weaker than those soldiers clad in military uniform beside them. It gave people a sense of security. This kind of proper demeanor and his behavior in bed at night were like two completely different personalities. Yu Minmin thought that she liked being abused. Otherwise, why would she think that Gu Jingming looked very handsome on screen? She was clearly so afraid of him. With a backdrop of all kinds of politicians, Gu Jingming was indeed unique. Furthermore, he definitely stood out in a good way. Looking at the other president and the political members beside him, no wonder Gu Jingming became the most popular Mr. President. Because he must have really been a miracle for the politics sector. The presidential guards suddenly entered from outside. Madam, it's time to go to the banquet. Yu Minmin quickly tidied herself up. To cover that mark on her neck, she had to wear a silk scarf. There were many people welcoming guests at the banquet. All kinds of personnel surrounded the area and the media was already cleared out. Linda led Yu Minmin in. She said to Yu Minmin as they walked, you'll be sitting with Mr. President later. Don't worry, it's just like a normal dinner. They won't be talking about national affairs so you can talk in peace. Okay, I got it, Yu Minmin replied. Before she went in, Yu Minmin stood at the entrance and waited for a while. She took a deep breath. The ladies around her seemed to all be nationals. Because C Nation was the visiting party, no other female companions were here except her. Someone at the side said with a face full of admiration, do you see that? That is Gu Jingze, C Nation's president. Where? Ah, I see him. He's the most handsome one, right? I noticed him during his election year. Later, I heard that he got married. Yeah, their wedding was like the wedding of the century. So many countries broadcasted it. I didn't watch it at all. I simply can't believe that he would marry a woman, that lady said agonizingly. What's wrong with that? It's a political marriage anyway. He secretly likes another woman. I heard that he has been taking care of her for a long time now. Oh my, he looks like such a proper man. Even he has a mistress. That woman exclaimed. The other woman laughed and tutted, silly. All women love a bad man, especially this kind of man at the top. Did you think he would have had some blood on his hands to get to that position? He's just keeping a woman secretly and you think it's bad. If you think it's bad, then stand aside. I'll go over to say hi later, she said as she puffed up her chest. Her face was filled with eagerness and desire. The other one heard this and was not willing to let her go alone. Then, the two women also saw Yu Minmin. They glanced at her. One of the women grunted, "What are you looking at? I'm going to gouge your eyes out if you continue staring." Humph. Yu Minmin was amused. They were talking about her man and she couldn't watch any longer. She stood there with her hands casually crossed in front of her. She stared ahead and said, "Well, apparently, he brought his wife today. I only want to advise you not to go overboard." That woman scoffed, "I went in to see just now. He did not bring his wife to the banquet. Why, what's the meaning of butting in like this? Where did you come from? Do you also want to get a piece of the action and chat with President Gu? Let me tell you this. As long as I'm here, you can forget about that. I will go first and you won't have a chance." Yu Minmin heard this and was even more amused. "I indeed want to go in. The fact that we are both going in is probably not related. You go your way and I'll go mine. We won't cross paths." The woman laughed and simply took out some cash from her purse. "Hey, that's enough. You won't succeed even if you go. I'll give you some money now. Go wherever you want to. President Gu is mine today." Yu Minmin stopped her. "Hey, forget it. I have no interest in your money." "Ha, then what are you interested in? President Gu, I'm telling you that even if you go in, you won't have a chance. I'm just taking pity on you and dismissing you. Otherwise, you won't get anything in the end. Your once-in-a-lifetime ticket to the state banquet will be all for naught." Yu Minmin wanted to say something, but the other woman already grabbed her arm tightly. "Hey, quick look." "Look at what? You're hurting me." "Isn't that President Gu? He's coming towards our direction." She heard this and looked up. Across them, Gu Jingming's face remained neutral. He said something briefly to Linda and then walked over. Chapter 644. A woman blocked his path. He wore a dark gray presidential suit. His broad shoulders made him look extremely suave and it felt as if the suit could hang onto him completely. When he was walking towards her, his clear eyes harbored a thick fog. They were fiery but at the same time, Yu Minmin could see the hint of arrogance hiding in them. As a man from the Gu family, he was destined to be different since birth. The two ladies at the side saw Gu Jingming's eyes which seemed to bore through people's hearts. He was looking straight in their direction and they could feel his dominance drifting over. The two ladies immediately became overwhelmed with excitement. They stared at him with fiery eyes. "Wow, he's really coming this way. Oh my god, we are too lucky. Let's go over quickly." They did not forget to look back at Yu Minmin. They seemed to fear that she would interrupt them, so they looked at her vigilantly. "Hey, you better take a look at your own status. We are not people you can afford to provoke in a nation. You should have heard about us. I've never seen you before so it must be your first time at this kind of dinner too. Don't disturb us, otherwise, you will get just your desserts." The other woman also grunted. The two of them were just about to move forward, but Gu Jingming was already coming towards them. His eyes were continuously fixed on one of the ladies. That woman immediately blushed shyly. It was obvious from her eyes that she was feeling hot. Mr. President." "Oh, hello," Gu Jingming really talked to them. The two ladies almost melted. They couldn't control their excitement. However, Gu Jingming only glanced at them. Then, he walked towards Yu Minmin. The two ladies stared in shock as Gu Jingming held Yu Minmin's hand. They were stunned. Gu Jingming looked Yu Minmin up and down. Yu Minmin lowered her head and greeted, "Mr. President." He raised his brow and plainly replied, "Yes." The two ladies behind watched as they conversed. One of them could not believe it. Gu Jingming was actually interested in this woman. She approached them and said, "Mr. President, you probably don't know who I am. All the electric equipment in a nation are produced by my family. My father admires you very much, so he asked me to come to talk to you. She then glanced viciously at Yu Minmin and said, I don't know where this person came from. I have never seen her in a nation. Don't you think that she absolutely does not look outstanding? You have to take a good look. Gu Jingming heard this and said, she is indeed not outstanding. He looked at Yu Minmin. But in comparison, I think she is prettier. Meaning to say that Yu Minmin was not outstanding, but they could not even compare to Yu Minmin. So vicious. Yu Minmin wanted to vomit, but deep down, she was inevitably impressed. The two women's faces instantly fell and deflated like rubber balls. They wilted each more than the other. However, they looked at Yu Minmin and again appeared unhappy. Gu Jingming couldn't be bothered with them. He looked at Yu Minmin as if she was appetizing, put his arm around her, and suggested, come on. Shall we talk over there? Yu Minmin wanted to laugh. She turned her head to look at those two and quickly left with Gu Jingming. The two ladies were furious. No way, President Gu left with her. How did he take a liking to her and even say that she was better than them? Beside them, Linda also looked at the two ladies. She grunted and tilted her face upwards proudly. She had the right to be proud. She was Gu Jingming's head secretary. Apart from Gu Jingming, she didn't have to answer to anybody else in C Nation. She instructed the guards beside her, why didn't you follow Madam President when she came in just now? Seriously, you let people scared her. We'll see how Mr. President punishes you guys. Sorry, Miss Linda, we were derelict. The guard quickly bowed and admitted to his mistake. The two ladies heard this and were shocked. No way, that woman just now was Madam President. Jealousy, hatred, and fear appeared on their cheeks all at once. This woman, she was apparently a commoner. She was actually lucky enough to be by Gu Jingming's side. This was too unfair. Yu Minmin joined Gu Jingming in a state dinner for the first time. A nation's president smiled and nodded at Yu Minmin. They shook hands and exchanged small talk. Yu Minmin used to see this person on TV. She kept reminding herself silently that this was not a television broadcast. It was better than that. She pinched her own hand to keep herself awake. She survived the dinner with great effort. Beside her, Gu Jingming maintained a perfect attitude from start to finish. She couldn't help but admire him even more. He was simply not an average person. He was so busy, but not even his hair was messy. He was the natural-born supreme king. When she was on her way back to the presidential suite, she received a call from home. Mother Yu spoke excitedly, we saw you on TV. Yu Minmin said lethargically, really? Yu Chengcheng took over the phone, sis, you are awesome. You look very much the part of the nation's mother when you stood there. My classmates were all asking when they could get your autograph. Go go go, pass the phone back to mom. No, sis, tell me quick, are you going to give me an autograph? I've already bragged so much already. You have to give me one. Forget it, if you don't want you, I'm hanging up. I'm busy. Mother Yu once again got hold of the phone. She warned Yu Minmin tirelessly, telling her to be careful and don't cause any trouble. After all, this involved the entire nation. Yu Minmin also knew that she had to be cautious. She rested in the room. It had been quite some time, but Gu Jingming was still not back. She wanted to ask where he went but didn't think that it was a good idea. She worried about asking the wrong questions. Unbeknownst to her outside, Gu Jingming really did not return to the room. He received a call from Yin Suya outside. Yin Suya said over the phone, I saw you on the news today. Okay. Be careful when you're outside. Okay. Also, I sent a gift to you. I hope you can take it with you wherever you go. Her voice became shy. I asked Linda to give it to you. You must take it with you. Yes, I already got it. Yin Suya hung up the phone in satisfaction. However, she thought to herself, Jingming, don't blame me for giving you to Xiaoai. I can't bear to either, but I want to let Yu Minmin know that you are still not hers. She cannot have all of you. When Gu Jingming opened a door, he saw a woman standing there staring right back at him. This person looked somewhat familiar. Mr. President, don't you remember me? I'm Amy. I used to go to school with Suya. I was even part of the horse riding club. Oh hello, Gu Jingming said. Chapter 645, Mr. President, Madam is in trouble. Amy spoke and smiled at him. Right, Suya heard that I was coming, so she asked me to bring the gift to you. Have you seen it? Yes, I already did. Thanks. Gu Jingming maintained his formal smile. She could not tell what he was thinking at all. Amy could not tell if he remembered her. She could only sigh in her heart. A president was really something. He hid his thoughts so deep that they were impenetrable. Just then, Linda walked over and smiled politely at Amy. She whispered to Gu Jingming, Madam is going to rest. Okay. He nodded at Amy and walked away. Madam President. Amy grew suspicious. Did this Yu Minmin know that she was here, so she called for Gu Jingming on purpose at this timing? Was she preventing Gu Jingming from getting close to other women? That night, Gu Jingming did not disturb Yu Minmin. Yu Minmin slept well. The next day, Gu Jingming continued on his presidential duties. He had to visit some park and Yu Minmin had to tag along. Today's activities were more laid back. Yu Minmin looked around from behind and saw that the park scenery was indeed very beautiful. However, there were also many beautiful structures. There were even all kinds of birds here chirping non-stop. Yu Minmin thought that the birds were extremely pretty. She stopped and slowly deviated away from the team in front. When she realized it, it was already too late. Oh my, they've gone so far ahead. This Gu Jingming didn't even tell her that they were moving on. Yu Minmin quickly tried to catch up. Madam President. At this moment, Amy found Yu Minmin. Yu Minmin saw a woman raising her brows and checking her out. She was clad in elegant clothes and looked graceful. Yu Minmin asked, Are you calling me? Amy said, I know that Suya actually lost to you. After you became Madam President, I've always been curious about what kind of person you're like. Suya. Yin Suya. Yu Minmin stopped. She really could not escape from Yu Minmin regardless of where she went. Yu Minmin asked, What do you want? Amy said, I know that it's a politic necessity that you become Madam President. For a person like you who never even experienced such a life, it must be very tough. She walked towards Yu Minmin step by step. She raised her chin slightly to show her arrogance. It was as if she looked down on Yu Minmin and there was nothing more she needed to say. If you hope that you'll be the only woman Mr. President has in his life, that is basically impossible. I'm just here to warn you. Sometimes, you have to turn a blind eye to last longer. She circled Yu Minmin. The clacking of her high heels brought a clear coldness. Mr. President will never fancy you and he will never stand by your side. Forget that you can't even match up to Suya. Even if you're prettier or richer than Suya, you can't match up to her relationship with Mr. President. Furthermore, you don't match up to Suya in anything at all. Yu Minmin looked at her. What do you mean? You should know more than I do, right? Sorry, I really don't. Amy lifted Yu Minmin's chin and was extremely provocative. Don't mind me using these underhanded tactics. Gu Jingming is mine today. Ha, what? Without waiting for Yu Minmin to say anything, Amy immediately walked ahead. It was Gu Jingming's lunchtime. He turned around but did not see Yu Minmin. This woman, even when she was walking, she would keep a distance from him. He looked up and asked Linda, Where is Yu Minmin? Linda hastily said, I'll go find Madam. He grunted and gestured for her to go ahead. Then, he massaged his brows as he leaned into his seat. A touch of fragrance drifted over. It was somewhat familiar. He suddenly remembered that Yin Suya usually wore this perfume. When he opened his eyes, a soft and slender hand reached over to him slyly. Mr. President, just rest if you want. You must be tired. Let me massage your shoulders. He raised his brow as he looked up. He saw Amy's deeply suggestive eyes. She wore a dark blue outfit that made her look extremely seductive with her makeup. Her lipstick was extremely refined. Every line on her lips was perfectly outlined. She deliberately rushed here. She gazed at Gu Jingming's powerful face. Even if it wasn't because her family needed Gu Jingming's help for a way out, she felt that giving herself to him was worth it. No wonder Yin Suya's heart ached so badly. How could she take it when she gave up a man like this to a woman like Yu Minmin? She looked at him almost greedily. She concentrated on his face and wanted to close in on him. She wanted to appear more innocent but uncontrollable because of the excitement. Her hands pressed his strong shoulders. However, before she could touch the exposed part of his skin, he grabbed her hands. He narrowed his eyes and bent her arm. Due to his seemingly little strength, her arm hurt. Ouch. Gu Jingming only felt faint and something was not right with his body. When he touched her hand, his heart moved in a certain direction. He was suspicious. Was it something to do with her perfume? Gu Jingming then tossed her onto the ground. The woman looked up grudgingly. Mr. President, you. Gu Jingming looked at her. Get out. However, his eyes seemed to already be losing focus. It looked like his energy was lowering too. Amy noticed and her eyes lit up. She quickly said, Mr. President, I'm only here to serve you. He looked at her. I know you. You're from IPLO Group. Amy's eyes changed. Knowing that he was clever, she was afraid that he would already know her motive. Thus, she could only change her strategy and revealed her own tender flesh. Her seductive gaze was even more intense. You're right, Mr. President. I indeed have a motive for getting close to you. My family needs help with the customs, but we've offended the National Security Bureau. Thus, I thought of asking Mr. President for a little help. However, this is all secondary. From the moment I saw you, I was already captivated by you. I'm willing to serve you and I'll absolutely keep it confidential. I won't cause any trouble for Mr. President. Gu Jingming scoffed, serve me. Do you think you're worthy? Amy pressed a finger to her lip as she looked at Gu Jingming, whether I am worthy or not you'll have to see for yourself, Mr. President. She leaned forward more and more, almost directly turning her chest to his direction. However, at that moment, Linda knocked on the door. Sir, Madam is in trouble. She has been tied up outside of the park. Chapter 646, on a video call with Gu Jingze. Gu Jingming's eyes were locked. Anger clouded his dark pupils as he looked down at Amy. She immediately felt scared and her eyes darted around. She seemed to be looking for an excuse, but it had already been revealed that this matter was linked to her. Gu Jingming strided out. Although he looked calm, his steps were extremely quick and he already disappeared within moments. Amy heaved a sigh of relief. Just before this, she specially had Yu Minmin locked up to prevent her from spoiling her plan. Little did she expect the presidential guards to find her so quickly. Amy naturally did not know that ever since Yu Minmin was nearly sabotaged, her phone and earrings all had trackers installed in them. If she suddenly went missing, they would be able to locate and find her. Thus, when the guards discovered that Yu Minmin was missing, they swiftly found her position. Yu Minmin was still struggling when she saw the guards come in. Gu Jingming walked in a huge commotion with many people followed behind. Yu Minmin's mouth was covered. The president from A nation was stunned. Take Madam to the hospital for a checkup. After that, they made Yu Minmin's safety the priority and brought her to the hospital. Then, they took her back to the presidential suite to rest. The security guards were doubled and they also began to investigate the cause of her being tied up. As they were worried that there would be too much involvement, this matter was sealed and was not leaked to outsiders. However, in C Nation, a majority of the people in high society still came to know about this. Yin Suya did not expect this Amy to be so brazen. She began to feel uneasy in her own home. She could only hope that Amy would not be so foolish as to reveal that it was her. However, Yu Minmin was the nation's mother. Now that she was receiving the best treatment, this made Yin Suya feel unjust. These damned presidential guards actually protected her so strictly. Wasn't she just a commoner? This matter was not over in a nation. Gu Jingming already had his people investigating. The incense he smelled came from Yin Suya's gift. It indeed had an aphrodisiacal effect that was not major, but it was enough to arouse a person's desires. Linda looked at Gu Jingming, waiting for an answer. Gu Jingming stood there for a long time. Finally, he said, we'll decide back in C Nation. Yes, sir. Lin Che had a good rest. It was already the second day in Los Angeles. She met the relevant personnel here and discussed the role setting and filming problems. The filming duration was not fixed. Usually, these things took 3 months and Lin Che would definitely have to stay in Los Angeles during the entire filming period. The other party was very happy to work with Lin Che. That blonde foreigner who previously was at the audition in C Nation was of Dutch descent and born in Los Angeles. His name was George. Lin Che knew that these foreign names were very normal and common as grass and flowers. Many people had this name and she already got to know 2 people with the name George on the first day with the crew. George showed her around. Director Steven was internationally known and greatly appreciative of Lin Che. But here, we require you to converse in English. It's best if you can speak it yourself, but if your accent is too strong, we will have a voice actress to dub over you. However, you should already be mouthing your lines in English. Lin Che instantly felt pressured, but she still agreed. Then I'm afraid I'll have to start learning now. Because of this, the director was not very friendly towards Lin Che. He thought that since she didn't know English, it looked like they still needed to see how this female lead would progress in the future. Would she be able to continue acting? They would still need to consider this. After Lin Che parted ways with the director, she obviously felt the director's attitude. George said beside her, "It's okay. You don't have to worry too much. Steven's demands are high, but he never saw your acting. You can use your acting to convince him." Lin Che thanked him. "I will do my best to learn English." "All right, I believe you. If you need a teacher, I can help you find one." "I'll look for one myself first. I'll definitely ask you if I need help." Lin Che returned to her hotel room and searched for English textbooks online. She realized that she had really forgotten all these English words. She would barely read them out loud. She sighed depressingly as she leaned in her seat and sent a message to Gu Jingze. "I need to learn English. This is bad." "Do it. I'll teach you," Gu Jingze replied. Lin Che said, "No. I want to find a teacher myself. Your temper is so bad that you'll definitely scold me. Are you sure a normal teacher can teach you given your limited intelligence?" Get lost. It was Lin Che's first time being so far away from him. She was no longer in the same country where even if she was outside of town for filming, he would only need a 2-hour flight to reach her. Here, they were separated by the vast ocean. She felt that he was so far away. Lin Che rested there and actually started to miss him. Thinking about this, Lin Che suddenly said, "Oh right, do you have QQ or the likes installed in your phone?" "No." "Can you install one?" "No." Seeing that he simply rejected her, she changed her tone. Install it, please. Install one so you can send me videos." "Videos?" Gu Jingze asked. Lin Che said, Yes. It's just like how you often have those video conferences. That's strange. Since you don't have QQ, how do you guys conduct your meetings?" "Using turboconferencing." "Huh, what is that?" "It's an app for the sole purpose of holding video conferences." Okay, the big CEO would definitely use such high-end professional things. She was really silly to think that entrepreneurs would conduct meetings over something like QQ. Lin Che said, "Download it. Please download it for me." After a while, Gu Jingze finally replied, "Done." Lin Che saw this and immediately jumped up. "That's great." She gave him a number so that he could add her as a friend. Then, they started a video call. Gu Jingze was very used to this kind of video call, but he frowned and looked rather unhappy. "It's not clear." Lin Che said, "Oh my, you're pretty smart. You learn fast. How did you know where to download the QQ from?" "My secretary downloaded it." Lin Che thought that the secretary must have been surprised that the CEO actually wanted to download QQ. Lin Che could almost visualize the puzzlement on the secretary's face. Lin Che looked at Gu Jingze, who was scrutinizing the screen. The soft light hit his face, making his originally handsome face flawless on the screen. Then she looked back at herself. In the video, her face was so big and ugly. Lin Che cursed and thought that the heavens was not fair. Why did they make Gu Jingze so perfect? Chapter 647. Wow, you guys are actually doing virtual sex. However, her eyes traced his face and she was extremely smitten. This was her man. He was so perfect. Gu Jingze noticed her expression and reminded her impatiently, "Hold your drool back." Lin Che panicked and then remembered that he was not at her side. She might as well tease him. Thus, she stretched out her hand and said, I don't want to. Handsome guy, I have plenty of money. Come, strip for me to see. Gu Jingze's face darkened. Lin Che raised her brow cheekily. Come on, come on. How else will I touch you? Gu Jingze looked speechlessly at her. You really want me to strip? Huh. I don't need money. If you want to see me, I'll show you. However, you must take off a piece of your clothing whenever I do. How about that? The big CEO was too smart. This was his first time on a video call with her and he already knew how to play this game. Lin Che waved her hand dismissively and said, No no no. I don't want to see any more. But I've already stripped, Gu Jingze spoke as he placed his phone a little further away. Then, on the screen, that extremely sexy man slowly lifted his hand and undid one of his buttons. Even separated by a screen, she could almost feel the outline of his muscles rising and descending. It was extremely beautiful. He undid the next button. His muscles were clearly exposed now. He intentionally performed that exciting move slowly. Lin Che felt as if her veins were expanding. Her eyes were locked on him. This Gu Jingze was a natural-born stunner. How could anyone contain themselves? Was he a devil reborn? That simple movement was already enough to amaze her. Lin Che couldn't take it and she exclaimed, Okay, okay. Stop stripping. Lin Che was really smitten to the core. If he was really right in front of her, she would have already lunged at him without a care in the world and brought him to the bed. However, she could only watch him through the screen now. She shouldn't have suggested chatting. She was simply torturing herself. Okay, okay, it was my mistake. Stop stripping. Lin Che waved her hand. Gu Jingze smiled and looked at her. What's up with you? Your face is so red, do you miss me? Yes, she missed him. She missed touching him and riding on him. She missed having him all to herself. Any woman would think the same if they saw his sexy move. In front of him, she was always the one being moved because he was too strong. She was always the one who got suppressed. But then again, even if she really wanted to suppress him, it depended on whether she dared to or not. Every time he held her down, she was already very shy. How could she think about anything else? However, it was different now that they were separated by a screen. Her thoughts were a lot more daring and direct. She wanted him. She wanted him so badly. Lin Che blushed and did not speak. Gu Jingze lowered the pitch of his voice, making him sound even more enchanting. Tell me, do you miss me? Lin Che lowered her head, no. Gu Jingze shook his head and looked at her face through the screen. Despite the distance, she seemed to be able to feel those captivating eyes of his drilling right through into her heart. After a long pause, he said the words plainly. But I miss you. But I miss you. Lin Che halted and looked up at Gu Jingze's focused face. With those words, she felt so touched that she couldn't contain herself. This Gu Jingze was really too manipulative. First, he made it difficult for her to hold herself back. Then, he suddenly said such emotional words. Lin Che wondered if her heart was really big. It was going to burst from his sweetness. He was really a devil. She pursed her lips and was still thinking if she wanted to admit that she missed him. Suddenly, she heard a commotion from behind. Sister Che, you're not sleeping yet, are you? Director Steven was looking for you just now. Lin Che suddenly remembered that she passed the room key to her own people for convenience. Now, someone simply came in. Lin Che's computer still had the image of Gu Jingze's naked sexy body. She instantly froze and then quickly shut the computer off. However, when she turned back, she already saw the staff member standing there stunned. Her eyes were locked on the computer as she stood as still as a log. She must have seen something. Oh my god, she was innocent and she was going to be destroyed by Gu Jingze. Of course, this was also partly her fault for not taking any precautionary measures. The female assistant who came in was new. Upon hearing Lin Che exclaim, she reacted and rushed to her. Oh my god, Sister Che. Did I see wrong? Why is there a naked man? A naked man, a naked man. Lin Che was so shocked that she was tongue-tied. You saw wrong. That's right, you saw wrong. How can that be? Did I really see wrong? Sister Che, don't lie to me. Your face is red. You must have been on a video call. Oh my god, Sister Che, is that your boyfriend? Why is he naked on the screen? This is too crazy. Lin Che hastily covered her mouth. Okay, Grandma, stop shouting. What was even more outrageous was that at this time, a whole line of her team came in. They hurried over after hearing the commotion. Upon hearing the female assistant mention a naked man, everyone's interests were piqued. They came in and said, "No way, Sister Che. You and your boyfriend were fucking." Sister Che, who is it? Why don't you introduce him to us? We are not strangers. There is no need for secrets. That's right, Little Wah, tell us who did you see? Is it someone we know? Everyone began to question Little Wah. Little Wah laughed and said, I didn't see who it was. Tisk, what a downer. You usually have good eyesight. Why is it useless now? But I saw that it was a very, very handsome guy. Wow. Really, but that is a given. How can Sister Che's boyfriend not be handsome? His figure was excellent. I could see his inverted triangle from afar. It's a pity that I didn't manage to get a good look before Sister Che turned it off. The few of them beamed as they turned to look at Lin Che. Lin Che quickly pleaded for mercy. You guys, that's enough, you guys. I'm not saying anything and neither are any of you. Go back and pretend that this did not happen. How can that be? Sister Che, tell us who exactly it is. Okay, all of you, out. Go, Jay, out together. Is your work all done? Don't digress. If they knew that the person inside was Gu Jingze. She and Gu Jingze were having a virtual sex talks. Wouldn't that be even crazier? She could not imagine it. If the news said that Gu Jingze's naked body was seen by people, what would the consequences be? Everyone's jaws would probably drop. Chapter 648. Causing trouble in Hollywood is asking for death. The thought of it already gave her a headache. Lin Che quickly called everyone out to talk about work and told them about the matter. The assistant said, Mr. Steven called just now and said that he has someone who appreciates C Nation's culture a lot. Since it's a rare occasion that Sister Che is in Los Angeles, he wanted to invite you to talk about C Nation culture. Lin Che knew that many foreigners were actually appreciative and curious about C Nation's traditions and culture. Thus, she agreed to it. Steven sent someone to pick Lin Che up. Lin Che brought a translator and assistant with her. They went to an American country bar that looked very casual. Inside, Steven saw that Lin Che was here and his attitude was much better than during the day. He said to her, "This is one of Hollywood's tycoons, Mr. Henry." "Hello," Lin Che smiled and greeted. Mr. Henry looked at Lin Che and was in awe. Yes, Miss Lin has the characteristic of C Nation. She is very delicate and pretty. Actually, in the United States, there are more and more C Nation immigrants because we are like a big family. We are different from other countries. This is the world's village. Thus, when I saw Miss Lin, I knew that with Miss Lin acting in this film, there would be no problems, be it from C Nation or Hollywood. Lin Che smiled and thanked him. After they sat down, she couldn't say that much because of the language barrier. She listened as the other party talked non-stop while the translator at the side translated every sentence continuously. She was only in charge of nodding her head. Steven said, Mr. Henry's mansion is in the luxury residential estate behind Hollywood. You probably know where that is. There are a lot of superstars staying there. It's extremely famous. The translator whispered beside Lin Che's ear. That place is indeed very famous. Really, no commoners reside there. There are only luxurious villas. It prospered because of Hollywood and is in a very good location. Sister Che can consider taking a walk there. Perhaps you might bump into a superstar. Lin Che replied, really, that's very good. As Lin Che sat there, she felt that man getting touchy with her. Lin Che didn't want to think in that direction at first because foreigners were more open after all. Perhaps their actions would be more intimate and make her uncomfortable, but it was normal to them. However, when a man slid his hand along a woman's exposed leg, that shouldn't be normal. Lin Che stood up. The guy looked at her surprised. Lin Che said, it's nothing. It's just that perhaps Mr. Henry mistook me for someone he's familiar with. I should sit over there. She intentionally spoke in a way so that her rejection would be sufficiently obvious. With all her experience in the entertainment circle, Lin Che knew that if she didn't make a clear rejection, it would become more dangerous for her. Thus, she decided to say it out clearly. Mr. Henry was indeed stunned, but he looked at Lin Che and shrugged. Lin Che smiled, sorry. It's my first time working here and I don't really know the culture here. However, C nationals tend to be more conservative. I hope everyone doesn't mind. Stephen looked at her meaningfully. He smiled and wanted to light up a cigarette but put it back down as he thought it was not right. He said, sorry, I almost lit up my cigarette. I have to respect the ladies and not light it up. Miss Lin, it's okay. Just sit with me. Initially, Stephen heard that some actors in C Nation would use underhanded means to attain roles. Naturally, this also happened over here but it was discreet. On the other hand, some C Nation actors would probably not care about all these and even take the initiative to offer themselves for the sake of coming to Hollywood. However, Lin Che rejected it. This surprised him, but also made him appreciate her even more. Lin Che heard this and looked at him gratefully. She knew that he meant that it was all right as long as she rejected it. He could promise that she would not meet with any problems. Thankfully, Mr. Henry saw that she was not interested and Stephen seemed very firm too. Thus, he did not mention it again. Anyway, if she didn't want to, then so be it. There were plenty of other women around and he didn't need to force it. If he really liked her, there were many other ways to move her. There was no need to be angry and force things here. After chatting for a while more, Lin Che stepped away to get some water. The translator and assistant quickly followed behind. The translator said, fortunately, they won't use force in public. Otherwise, that would really be troublesome. Lin Che sighed, it's okay. If he didn't react after warning him, then forget it. Actually, Lin Che rarely encountered something like this back home because she basically rejected all entertainment appointments. She usually would not show up at these appointments unless it was really a post-production dinner or a crew gathering. She would then go there for fun. She really met these unspoken rules when she was not yet famous. Thus, she couldn't really react in time just now. However, at that moment, a woman slapped her across the face. Lin Che held her cheek in shock. She saw a woman standing in front of her. Her blonde hair was gathered to one side and her slender, white neck was exposed on the other. She was obviously a very fair Caucasian. She wore exquisite makeup and looked gentle. However, the expression on her face was murderous. She immediately exclaimed, so you are the mistress that Henry found. Ha, AC National. His taste really can change that much. The translator translated it for Lin Che. She understood what was happening and quickly said, you're mistaken. This is only my first time meeting Mr. Henry. However, the translator was also probably a little too slow. Before the translator could finish translating, the woman's hand was already coming toward Lin Che's face again. This time, Lin Che was aware of it and she began to struggle with the woman. Ah, let go of me. Damn it, can you understand what I'm saying? You still dare to hit me? Lin Che yelled. She was also not to be outdone and was not afraid of fights. The woman was equally fierce. She did not expect Lin Che to resist, but once she knew of it, she grabbed Lin Che and refused to let go. She spoke agitatedly, you dare to come to Los Angeles and behave atrociously. Do you really think that C Nation's supremacy applies here? I don't care what celebrity you are in C Nation. You came here to seduce Henry. I will beat you to death and make sure that you can never get any role in Hollywood. The assistant and translator saw this and quickly rushed to help pull the blonde woman away. The blonde woman was agitated. She picked up a candlestick by the side and threw it at Lin Che. Lin Che caught the candlestick and hurled it back. They fought to and fro. The candlestick suddenly hit the woman's face. Fresh blood gushed out from her forehead. The woman was stunned. The candlestick landed on the ground with a thud. She stepped back and looked at the blood on her hand. Ah, my face, she exclaimed. Lin Che also covered her mouth. She did not expect to hit the woman like this. However, she was really on self-defense just now. Who told the woman to throw the candlestick at her? If she didn't retaliate, the one bleeding might have been her. Chapter 649. Offended someone she could not afford to. At this time, the scuffle just now already caught everyone's attention. The bar's security guards already hurried over. Someone also called 911. Henry hurried here and saw the situation. He held his head intensely. Madeline, what happened to you? What's going on? Your face. She cried as she crawled across the floor. Henry quickly bent down and picked her up. Stephen was stunned. He asked frantically, what is going on? What happened? Lin Che said, she came to me. The translator beside her quickly translated what happened. When Stephen heard this through, Henry already took Madeline away. The police also arrived and brought them all to the nearest police station. Stephen stood there and said, Lin Che, you're in big trouble. Lin Che asked strangely, why? I don't know what's going on. She made the first move and I was just defending myself. If possible, we can take a look at the surveillance footage and we'll know everything. Stephen said, that's not the problem. I know that it's not your problem today. She is Henry's most beloved woman and he will never let the matter rest. He holds nearly half of Hollywood's assets. Our days are going to be difficult. The actors' union is also controlled by him. Whether we can use you or not may be entirely up to him. Since you're here to act, you need to get the union's approval first before we can sign the contract. But now. Meaning to say that she really offended a big shot and this big shot could determine her fate. How could such a coincidence occur? How could she be so unfortunate? Lin Che never thought that Henry would actually be such an impressive person. To be able to control half of Hollywood, his status must have already been out of the ordinary. She was not familiar with Hollywood and naturally did not know about anything. It was her first time here and she already offended such an important person. Should she feel lucky? She met a big shot like Henry as soon as she got here. Meanwhile, it was morning in C Nation. Sister Lin smiled at Qin Wanwan. The person on the other side already told me that Lin Che is done for this time. Qin Wanwan asked, what? Is it done? That's right. You sent someone to inform Henry's little lover and she really fell for it. She rushed straight to it and thought that Henry found another lover again. Thus, she fought Lin Che. Her sultry reputation is really not fake, especially when she fought Lin Che. Now, Lin Che hit her head and her journey in Hollywood might already be over before it even started. Viciousness spread over Qin Wanwan's cheeky face. That face underwent modifications recently and looked obviously more perfect. She did not look like a normal person anymore and she looked a lot sharper. She seemed a bit fake, but it didn't matter. On TV, she should look much gentler than in real life and she would not look so fake then. She was really annoyed that Lin Che could go to Hollywood and was accepted for the film adaptation of the internationally popular novel, Blood. Plenty of celebrities wanted to go into Hollywood, but none of them were as lucky as her. She got such a good film so quickly. Qin Wanwan also tried to go. However, she could only act in a small role that didn't even show her face. She immediately rejected it. But Lin Che was way too lucky. It must have been because Qin Wanwan was too low profile, so when Blood came to C Nation to find actors, nobody thought about her. Nobody thought about her for even 1 second. She was completely embarrassed. The entire company even said that Lin Che became more popular after letting her go. On the other hand, Qin Wanwan immediately worsened. The company was really on the losing end. Humph. There was no way she would let Lin Che be so lucky. Did she think that getting around in Hollywood was easy? At least she went overseas to audition a few times so she understood the initial stages over there. However, Lin Che never went abroad for acting before. Thus, it was still easy to toy with her. So what if she clinched Blood? I can still make her unable to act. I just want to wait and see what the media will write when she comes back as a disgrace. Sister Lin looked at the expression on her face. After the cosmetic surgery this time, her face was really so sharp that even she was starting to feel scared. This Qin Wanwan was too ruthless. She was so ruthless that she was almost unstoppable. Lin Che had been feeling troubled recently. Gossip was still spreading back home that her acting did not match up to Mu Farron's and that she was stealing roles. Meanwhile, in Hollywood, she met with trouble again. With Stephen's help, things were quickly settled at the police station. Stephen asked her. I heard that you get along pretty well with Mr. Eric. Why don't you try asking him to help put in some good words for you? Perhaps he and Mr. Henry are acquainted too. I actually only met Mr. Eric a few times. It's just that his daughter is very fond of me. It's better not to disturb him so casually with this. Let me see first. Perhaps Mr. Henry is not as scary as you describe. Stephen shrugged. I won't comment on that. Lin Che felt such a huge pressure that she lost her appetite. She felt particularly nauseous. She managed to hold it in as she walked to a ventilated place. With the open air, she felt a lot better. Just then, her phone rang. She looked down to see that it was from Gu Jingze. She clenched her hands and decided not to pick it up for now. She only just got here and she was already in trouble. She felt that she could not face anyone. Especially not Gu Jingze. Seeing that she did not pick up, Gu Jingze paused and looked at the time. She was probably still resting, so he didn't call her again. Just then, Chin Hao suddenly said, Sir, Miss Mo is here. I'm not seeing her. I told her that, but Miss Mo said that it's regarding the child. The child is not mine. I'm not seeing her. But Miss Mo said that she's willing to consider abortion. Gu Jingze stood there silently for a long time. Okay, let her in. When Mo Hiling entered, she saw Gu Jingze who was sitting in the middle. She asked, if I aborted the child, how are you going to compensate me? Gu Jingze stared at her and took a deep breath. What do you want? Mo Hiling scoffed. I want you to accompany me to the abortion and I want the 3 shopping malls that your mother mentioned previously. I know that these are only worth a few cents to the Gu family, right? Gu Jingze took a deep breath. Why do you want me to go to the abortion clinic with you? Tears rolled down Mo Hiling's cheeks. No matter what you say, I know in my heart that the child is yours. I only want to be with you just for a while. I have no other requests. I just want you to accompany me to the abortion. If you don't go, I will never abort my child. It's not fair. It's not fair that an innocent girl like me has to carry a child and get nothing in the end. You must compensate me. Gu Jingze listened to her words. He remained quiet for a moment and then nodded. Okay, I will accompany you. Let's go now. Chapter 650. Didn't you say you were going to abort the child? Upon hearing Gu Jingze agree, Mo Hiling immediately looked up. Tears were still in her eyes, but she looked rather shocked. She didn't say that she wanted to do it now. She said, wait a minute. He wanted her to get rid of the child so quickly. Did he have no feelings and compassion for the child at all? Mo Hiling thought about it hurtfully. She looked up with meekness in her eyes and her hands fiddled in front of her. Well, the doctor I made an appointment with can only do it next week. She still wanted to be with him during this period. She wanted to make use of this motive and get close to Gu Jingze. She was just in luck when she heard that Lin Che just went to Los Angeles and Gu Jingze was alone at home. Gu Jingze said plainly, oh, it's okay. I'll help you book a doctor. Mo Hiling quickly grabbed his hand and then remembered that she could not touch him. She immediately withdrew her hand and said, the doctor I go to is the best. If I'm going to do an operation, I'm not going to any rubbish doctor. What if my body gets ruined? This doctor is usually very busy and she only has time for me next week. Gu Jingze asked, what's the name of your doctor? Say it. Mo Hiling looked at the unhappiness in his eyes. She could only bite her lip and say, she is Dr. Gu Chunlai. She's a top gynecologist. People wait in line for months for delivery and operations. If it's not her, I won't find anyone else. Okay, come with me. What? Gu Jingze's lower lip curved downwards as he looked at her. Mo Hiling's heart halted. She had no choice but to follow him. As Gu Jingze brought her along, Mo Hiling could see that the car was really headed straight to a private hospital. Her heart began to beat faster. However, she assumed that if she was not willing, Gu Jingze probably would not force her to go through with it. But why were they going to a private hospital now? She inevitably wondered if he found his own doctor to convince her to abort her child. If that was the case, she absolutely would not agree to it. When they arrived, the doctor saw that it was Gu Jingze and they immediately welcomed him and Mo Hiling. Mr. Gu, everything is already prepared. Where is the doctor? We have already called Dr. Gu here, the doctor smiled and replied politely. Mo Hiling froze. What was going on? Dr. Gu, wasn't she the hardest to get? How come? Gu Jingze turned back and said, go in. Dr. Gu is already waiting for you. No, you're lying. How can it be Dr. Gu? Mo Hiling said frantically. Gu Jingze grunted, why wouldn't it be her? Just then, Dr. Gu came out from inside. Mo Hiling saw that it was really her. Dr. Gu said, Miss Mo, you're just in time. Come in for an examination. Why you? Mo Hiling thought that she miscalculated. The Gu family was no ordinary family. It would be much easier for them if they wanted to engage a doctor than it would for her. She waited so long for this Dr. Gu. Little did she expect that the doctor would simply come at the call of the Gu family. She forgot that Gu Jingze was simply this capable. Gu Jingze placed his hands in the pockets of his windbreaker. There was a blank expression on his face. Mo Hiling had no choice but to go in. Gu Jingze scoffed. When Mo Hiling went in, he waved his hand to his men and said, go in and keep an eye on her. Mo Hiling laid on the bed. Because of Gu Jingze, Dr. Gu was a lot nicer to her now. She cursed internally. The Mo family may be inferior to the Gu family, but she was still a daughter of the Mo family. This doctor's attitude change was too significant. Miss Mo, I'm going to do an ultrasound. It'll be a little cold, so please bear with it. She applied the icy cold gel on Mo Hiling's belly. Mo Hiling simply felt unhappy no matter what she thought. There was no way. She could not abort the child just like this. She never intended to abort the child. She only wanted to create an opportunity to get close to Gu Jingze. Now, Gu Jingze was actually forcing her to abort the child, and she definitely had to find excuses. She hoped that the 1-week delay could help change Gu Jingze's attitude. Otherwise, she would find an excuse. Either way, she was never going to abort the child. When the ultrasound machine was placed on her belly, it felt uncomfortable to her. She pushed the doctor's hand away angrily. Go away. Who do you think you are? You have your nose in the air and you dare touch my child. Do you know that the Gu family's heir is inside me? She grunted, jumped down from the bed, and headed out. Ah, you, the doctor was stunned for a moment and grunted coldly. If it wasn't because of Gu Jingze, she wouldn't have come here either. However, she really did not know that this woman was related to Gu Jingze. Otherwise, she wouldn't be so proud. As she watched Mo Hiling run out, she didn't dare to say anything and let her run away. Mo Hiling dashed out. Gu Jingze blocked her. Mo Hiling looked up and said frantically, I'm sorry, Jingze, I still can't bear to abort our child. I can't do it. After that, she pushed him away and ran out. The guards saw this and wanted to go after her. However, Gu Jingze raised his hand to stop them. Forget it. He turned around. Let her go. He knew that she had some tricks up her sleeves, so he let her go now. Meanwhile, on the outside, Mo Hiling turned back to look at this hospital. She was angry and frustrated. She did not expect Gu Jingze to really be precautious around her now. If he treated her a tenth of how he treated Lin Che, the situation wouldn't have been this way. However, his heart now really only had that little slut, Lin Che. What hypnotizing soup did that little slut make him drink exactly? He was now so loyal to her. He was so nice to Lin Che that it made Mo Hiling jealous. But she shouldn't let this trip go to waste either. She took a photo of the hospital in Gu Jingze's car. She scoffed and thought, ah, Lin Che. If you see that Gu Jingze accompanied me to the hospital, will you still think that Gu Jingze is solely devoted to you? She did not believe that Gu Jingze and Lin Che's relationship would be so good that there wouldn't be any misunderstandings. Lin Che was still feeling badly battered in Hollywood. Steven was also with her. He looked at Lin Che and said, he is indeed starting to say some stuff in the actors union now. He is requesting to use Asian faces. He wants to seize the Asian market regardless of the quality of the film and is citing reasons that the rewards of local actors will be impacted. He wants you to go home. Lin Che knew that nationals who come here would rather have lesser rewards just to be able to film a good Hollywood movie. Thus, with low pay and high box office, it was a high-cost performance. Some would even offer to invest a little, and the movie industry here was naturally willing to use Asians. This, in turn, caused a conflict with the local actors and affected their work greatly. Their authority was relatively high. If Lin Che really offended the union, there was no turning back.